Hi, I'm Heather. Welcome to class. Today we're going to do a sequence that is specifically for those who are starting out with inverted postures. Before we begin, if you find this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. Let's start by taking our mat to the wall. Have the narrow end of your mat against the wall, and then we'll come down onto the knees and stretch forward. Big toes touching the wall, and create a V shape with your thighs and your shins. So big toes are touching each other as well as touching the wall. Knees apart, stretch forward. So we're coming into Adho Mukha Virasana, downward facing hero pose. As you lengthen your arms forward, keep your elbows straight. Broaden the palms, spread the fingers, and pressurize the inner hands down as much as the outer hands. Sometimes there can be this temptation to be relaxed in the arms, let the elbows drape down, the inner hands lift up off the floor, and we're not working through the shoulders and the arms and the hands in the way that we want to in preparation for dog pose, but also in preparation for our handstand variation. So we press into the palms, squeeze the elbow tips in, and you can even look at your hands. Firstly, make sure they're shoulder width apart. Secondly, see that this knuckle of the index finger on both hands is suctioning down into the floor. So we spend a few moments in this pose, settling the hips back and down as you're keeping the arms firm and straight. And maintain that straightness, that firmness in the arms as we transition to downward facing dog pose. So we can look forward towards the hands, inhale the shoulders forward, tuck your toes, exhale, lift your hips and utilize the wall. Press your heels to the wall. So you've got your heels up high, and as you press your heels to the wall, straighten the legs, rotate the pelvis in such a way that the sitting bones lift up towards the ceiling so that your spine moves in. Rather than letting the spine round, can you go on lifting the sitting bones, straighten your back, and as you're pressing the hands into the floor, get the feeling that your arms are also pressing down through the hands. So arms and hands pressing into the floor to cause a rebound lift through the torso. Torso rebounds up away from the floor through the action of pressing the arms and the hands down. Go on pressing the inner hands down, so it might be worthwhile looking forward at your hands. Are the inner hands lifting up off the floor? Can you suction the knuckles of the index fingers back down into the floor? And have a look at your elbows. Are they bent? Are they straight? Squeeze those elbow tips in. And then again, you could look back towards your feet. Open the back of the knees as you press your thighs up and back, and work the shin bones back. Then let's come down onto the knees again, and we'll give the arms a rest. So you can cross your forearms, rest your head down, forward on the forearms. Relax your hips back and down. If the knees are problematic and the hips don't like moving back and down, you could potentially wedge a blanket or a bolster in between the buttocks and the heels. Now, similar to dog pose, we're going to be lifting the hips up, but instead of being on the hands, we're going to be on the forearms. So let's not worry about using the wall for this. We can come forward just a little bit more so that there's no confusion. We're not accessing the wall for this. Set your elbows shoulder width apart. So to do that, you can align the elbows there directly underneath your shoulders, and then we'll interlock the fingers with the forearms and the wrists on the floor. When we interlock the fingers, you zip the fingers all the way to the webbing. You can bring the heels of the hands together and see that you're pressing this outer wrist down into the floor. So the little finger side of the wrist, press that down into the floor through both wrists, and then like our dog pose, we'll lift our hips up. So you lean forward enough that you can tuck your toes, lift your hips up, and keep your heels lifted. So similar to dog pose, the heels lifted, the sitting bones lifted. And when we're looking towards the feet, drive the forearms down into the floor to push away from the floor. So again, this sense of the action of the arms helping to create the rebound lift through the torso. Torso lifting well away from the floor. Lengthen your armpit chest, lengthen the sides of the waist as you press the head of the thighs up. Legs are strong and straight. Then let's come down. So again, when you bend the knees apart, big toes touch. And let's just keep the fingers interlocked even though we can rest the arms so that we remember which index finger we have had interlocked on top. So you can separate the elbows. If it's comfortable enough, rest your forehead on the floor as the arms relax. Now we go for the opposite interlock. So again, just bring your elbows in to your shoulder width and we'll swap the interlock of the fingers. Heels of the hands in contact, wrists pressing down into the floor. And this time, we're calling this the forearm balance preparation. Yes, we're balancing on the forearms, we are keeping the feet down, so it's a preparation for the full pose, Pincha Mayurasana. But again, when we lift up, we're creating a shape that's similar to our down face dog pose. But this time, rather than looking at the feet, we're going to look forward towards the hands and see if we can walk in a little bit more and bring the shoulders more vertically top the elbows. Keep looking towards the floor, between the forearms, between the wrists, and push well away from the floor. And then you can walk back out and bend your knees, come down and have a rest. And then come to sit up. So one of the reasons that we would walk the feet in and bring the shoulders more vertically top the elbows is because that's replicating the positioning of the upper arms when we come into the full pose, Pincha Mayurasana, which is our forearm balance. Rather than having the upper arms on a diagonal, which is what we're doing in down face dog pose, we're wanting to create more of that feeling of weight bearing through the forearms. And so we continue on, and now we're going to work by stepping the feet up the wall. So we need to measure, well, how far away from the wall do we place the elbows? So let's bring a belt and a brick into the picture. I've got my belt and brick, and I'm going to sit with the feet touching the wall. So this is marking the distance between the wall and where I want to place my elbows. You can use your belt or your brick, but eventually we're going to put the belt on our elbows. So perhaps let's leave that for a moment and place your brick there directly behind the hips. And then you can come up and you'll see that line that you've created. We'll move the brick to the side so that it's not in our way. We've still got that as a marker. But let's make the loop in our belt shoulder width apart. So I'll often put the loop there right over the thumb tip, the thumbnail, and bring it underneath the elbow. And for me, that's a good measurement of having my arms shoulder width apart. Now, if my shoulders are reasonably supple, I'll place my elbows on the floor in line with this line that I've created from that measured brick, or a little closer to the wall. But if my shoulders feel tight, there's some restriction there, I'll take the elbows further out, away from the wall in relation to this line. So you decide, but we will go with the fingers interlocked. That's a little bit easier on the shoulders than trying to have the hands shoulder width apart. It can be a bit more challenging in the shoulders. So fingers interlocked, it's a good entry point for the pose. When we lift up, so we drive the forearms down, the belt is holding the elbows. And one of the reasons we'd use that is because commonly the elbows want to slip out wide, particularly when we take the hands out wide. So this is giving us the feeling of using the belt, to restraining the elbow position. So heels of the hands touching, wrists in contact with the floor as you lift your knees up off the floor. And then you can look towards the wall, step one foot up the wall, keep your knees touching rather than stepping that leg too high. So as the knees are touching, you'll know then that that foot hasn't gone too high. So then when you step your second foot up the wall, your feet are about the same height as your hips. Press the thighs up, move your spine in. So spine moves in towards the front body moves towards the wall. But you go on driving the forearms down to push away from the floor. So you're not wanting to collapse the head down. Keep the head off the floor. We're not doing headstand, we're doing forearm balance. This is the preparation for the full pose. Potentially you can look towards the floor there between your forearms, but don't go collapsing. If you feel like your shoulders are coming forward towards the hands and you're going to flatten your face on your hands, you may need to step down and take your arms further forward into the middle of the room. Let's step down. We'll have a rest. So you can come back onto the knees, relax the arms, relax the shoulders, steady your breath. So as I said, if your shoulders feel restricted, you take your elbows further away from the wall and potentially you step your feet a little higher up the wall. Particularly if you find that your feet are slipping down the wall, it's hard to get them feeling that they're sticking and staying in place. Let's go one more time. This time, opposite index finger interlocking on top. So the heels of the hands are touching, wrists are pressing down. If you're finding it really challenging, just do the pose with your feet on the floor rather than stepping your feet up the wall. As you're ready, you'll inhale and exhale. Step one foot up the wall. So again, align the knees there as you step one foot up. Try stepping your alternate leg up first. You're going to have a favorite leg that wants to step up first. Try and step that opposite leg up. And then when you're ready, step up, feet together, legs together. And as soon as you step up, drive the forearms down, lift the torso up away from the floor. Create as much length through the shoulders, the sides of the chest, sides of the torso, sides of the waist as you can. Press the head of the thighs up. Move the spine in. Make sure you're breathing smoothly. And then we'll step down, come down, and again, let's have a rest. Let the arms and shoulders completely relax. And when you're ready, come to sit. Now, similarly, we're going to use this brick as our marker for where we place our hands for our handstand preparation. So we come to stand up. I'm just going to straighten my mat up there. And we can use the belt. The belt can be really helpful to help keep the arms firm and straight. Sometimes there could be a tendency for the elbows to want to bend out wide, and then people may feel weak or vulnerable in the pose. So using the belt around the elbow tips, just reinforcing the feeling of straightening the elbows. Make sure though that when you do that, your hands are shoulder width apart. So we place our hands in line with where the brick marked our spot. And again, if your shoulders are tight, your hands are further forward than the line. If you feel less restricted in the shoulders, you can perhaps bring the heels of the hands in a little closer to the wall. You don't want to go too close though. We certainly don't want to feel like our spine is kicking in and we're overdoing with our lumbar lordosis there. So let's work out where is it suitable for you to place your hands. You'll find out as soon as you step up the wall. So broaden the palms, spread the fingers, walk your feet back to the wall as if you're doing a little down face dog pose. You look towards the feet. Bend one knee, step that foot up the wall, knees together. Use your breath, inhale, exhale. As you step your second foot up the wall, just start with the knees bent. sometimes when we straighten the legs straight away, the shoulders pull away from the wall and the feet slip down the wall. So keep the knees bent, move your armpit chest towards the wall, and lift the torso well away from the arms, so much so that you can fit your head between the belt and the torso. If you're not lifting enough, your forehead's going to hit against your belt. See if you can push away from the floor, create more length through the sides of the torso. Slowly then straighten your knees. Press the thighs up. Keep moving the spine in towards the chest. So that upper spine, move that in. And let's step down and have a rest. Now, as we rest, just let the belt fall down. Let the back of the hands rest on the floor. So if you can't reach because your hamstrings are tight, bend your knees and feel the back of the hands rest on the floor so the wrists are restful. If your hamstrings are long enough, you do this with the legs straight. So you're in Uttanasana. Here we go again, handstand preparation. Put your belt on. Just around the elbow tips, place your hands. Shoulder width hands, and you broaden the palms. Spread the fingers, and then you step back to the wall. Now remember, you're going to have a favoured leg. One leg wants to step up first. Can you go with your least favoured leg, the alternate leg? Step that foot up the wall first, knees together. Inhale, exhale, step your second foot up, keep your knees bent, and then see if you can move your armpit chest and your chest itself more towards the wall. Maintain that. Slowly straighten the legs. Press the thighs up. And as the arms and the hands are pushing into the floor, rebound the torso up towards the ceiling. Keep breathing. And then step down. And again, we'll rest in Uttanasana with the back of the hands on the floor. And then we'll come to stand. So slowly raise the head up. Just stand slowly. We've had the head down for quite some time, so we want to reintegrate to being upright. Hands to the waist, the head lifts, and then the torso lifts. We're going to move on and do our headstand preparation. We'll be keeping the feet on the floor because this is a particular class for beginners, those who are newish to inversions, and we're going to use 3 bricks. Now, if you don't have 3 bricks, hopefully you've got 2, and you can use a thick book as stand-in for the 3rd brick. So let's get those props. I've got my 3 bricks. If you have 2 bricks and a thick book or a couple of books to make up for 1 brick, that's going to go flat on the floor. Better to use the books on the bottom of this setup. Now, it's a little distance out from the wall, so if you've got a skirting board, that's fine. It sits forward of the skirting board. Then put a tall brick on top. So if you're looking at it from this perspective, it's an upside down letter T, capital T. Then this 3rd brick sticks out from the wall. So this is going to sit into your thoracic spine, the spine here between the shoulder blades, which sometimes wants to drop when we come into headstand. So this is reminding the thoracic spine to move in and lift up. Now, as I said, we're not going to lift the feet up. We're not going to kick the legs up. This is a preparatory pose. So we'll be putting the head on the floor in our headstand position, lifting the hips, but keeping the feet on the floor. Now, when we set up in headstand, we want to zip the fingers all the way up to the webbing and have the heels of the hands apart enough that the head can settle into that cup shape. We want to make sure the wrists don't collapse. So as we set up, bring the knuckles to the lower brick. So you've got the heels of the hands apart. Before, when we were doing the forearm balance prep, we had the heels of the hands together. Now we separate the heels of the hands. But just like our forearm balance prep, we were working these little finger sides of the wrists down into the floor. So same idea. Press those outer wrists down into the floor and roll the inner wrist, the thumb side of the wrist, in towards the head. Keep the elbows shoulder width as you slowly bring your head to the floor. You'll need to lift your hips up so you can get your head down. So crown of the head onto the floor. Now, just to be clear, just in case you're not sure where's the crown of the head, you can potentially bring the heel of the hand into the bridge of the nose there and roll the hand up so that the middle finger comes to touch the top of the head. And likewise, you can draw a line from the top of the ears over to the top of the head, and you'll find this space that we're wanting to press onto the floor. So again, we've got knuckles touching the brick, outer wrist pressing into the floor, elbows shoulder width, and the crown of the head comes to the floor. As soon as the head comes onto the floor, notice if the shoulders are pulling down into the neck. Drive the forearms down to lift the shoulder blades up the back, away from the floor. Roll the thumb side of the wrist, the inner wrist, against the head. Then tuck your toes, lift your knees off the floor and walk in. So you walk in to feel your upper back contact the brick. Now you can do this with feet together or apart. If you take the feet apart, it perhaps gives you a bit more stability, so hip width stance is fine. But drive the wrists down. As soon as you feel the wrists press down, the shoulders can elevate. So shoulder blades lifting up away from the forearms, but the forearms driving down solidly. Elbows to wrists, wrists to elbows, press firmly into the floor. And with that action, the shoulder blades rebound up. Then see if you can get a sense of lengthening through the sides of the chest, sides of the waist, and also lengthening through the front of the body. Draw the pubis up between the thighs as the sit bones lift and pull back towards the wall. So if you're feeling stiff, your feet might be a long way out from the wall and your back might be rounded. If possible, walk in with the knees bent and pull the hips back more towards the wall, even if the knees have to be bent, so that you're keeping your back straight. Try to straighten your spine, drawing the hips back towards the wall. And then just notice whether the elbows want to slip out wide. Is the skin on your forearms causing the slippage? Elbows squeeze in, shoulder width. All right, let's come down. So you can step out, bend your knees, and we'll come down for a rest. You can cross the forearms, rest your forehead down on your forearms. When you're ready, then come to sitting. Now we're going to change our props. We'll move our bricks and we'll bring in some cushions. Perhaps if you've got shoulder stand pads or shoulder stand cushions, you can use them as well. We're going to do shoulder stand using the wall for support, but also plough pose using a chair. So we'll need to bring in quite a few props. So you'll see the props that I've got. I've got a chair, I've got my belt, I've got, whether it's shoulder stand cushions and blankets or just the cushions alone, or whether it's a pile of blankets. We want enough height underneath our shoulders that our neck is not compromised when we come into our neck flexion, which is involved with shoulder stand. You'll also note I've got a couple of bricks here. Now, they're acting as a spacer between my shoulder stand cushions and the wall, but they're also going to offer some support for the back of the pelvis when I lie with the legs up the wall in order to come into the pose. Now I'm going to work with a blanket overlapping my shoulder stand height and then coming onto the floor for the back of the head. Then to work out the distance between the setup, the shoulder stand setup and the chair, I'm going to sit with the legs coming underneath the chair. So when I sit, I want to see the shoulder stand blankets or cushions just a little bit between the inner thighs so that the thighs are predominantly off the cushions and the buttocks are on the cushions. Yeah, I'm not all the way back here. And then the feet are pretty much in line with the middle of the seat there. Then make sure that your belt is shoulder width apart. It's likely still set up like that from our previous poses. We're going to spin around and take our legs up the wall to get ready to do a supported shoulder stand and a plough pose with the feet coming to the chair. So put your belt around one elbow. You can hold on to the other end of the loop with the same hand so you know where the loop is. Take your legs up the wall, and when you lie down, you want to feel that the shoulders can stay within the boundaries of the cushion. So when you're ready, you're going to press the feet to the wall, knees bent, lift up, but note how often when we lift, the shoulders want to scoot off the blankets. You've got to walk the shoulders back as soon as you start lifting the hips up. So walk the shoulders back onto your cushions, but don't walk your head onto your cushions. So the head's on the floor, the lower level, shoulders are on the upper level. Then put your belt around both elbows. So the belt's behind the back, it's not overhead. I do see students get confused with that. Take your belt behind the back towards the wall and put it around the elbows that way. Sometimes putting the belt on causes the shoulders to roll forward again. So once more, reinforce that action of rolling your shoulders under. So coming to stand on the tops of the shoulders. Then bring your hands onto your back ribs. Don't let your hips sink and don't take your hands onto your hips. You want to press your hips forward and get your hands as low down the back as you can towards the shoulder blades. If it's tricky and your shoulders are tight, it may be worthwhile putting another blanket underneath the elbows. So you're elevating the elbows, which can give you a bit more support. But the hands are stretching the skin on the back up. So we're supporting the back ribs. Then some of you may feel that you still want the support of the wall, in which case you bring the heels together, the ankle bones, big toe bones together, heels are on the wall. So you're creating a diagonal line from your shoulders through your hips to your feet. Others of you may be brave enough, and maybe you've done this pose before, to come into a free balance. So again, make sure your hands are supporting the back. You stretch one leg up. Use your abdominal muscles, engage them as you stretch your other leg up. The hands are offering support. You're not wanting to let the body slip. So ideally, we're creating a straight line. So if you're slipping, press your feet to the wall, move your hips forward again, lower the hands down the back. So straight vertical line from shoulders through hips to ankles. And we get steady and we breathe. Then we can stabilize ourselves by putting one foot back on the wall. So let's take the left foot back to the wall, and without moving your head, just cast your gaze up and overhead towards your chair. So you should be able to see the chair. You don't have to move your head to do that. And then take the right leg over, right toes to the chair. If your hamstrings are tight, you need to commit to taking the left foot off the wall. So left foot can come off the wall as the right leg comes down onto your chair. Right foot onto your chair. Both feet are on your chair, and you press the thighs up. So as you press the thighs up, the front body lengthens. You don't want to be rounding the back and letting the front body shorten. See if you can sweep the pubis up between the thighs towards the ceiling and draw the sit bones back towards the wall behind you. Strong action in the thighs. Press the thigh bones up. Now we're going to come out of the pose the way we came into it. So take the left leg up. You can bend the knee, reach the left foot back to the wall, and take the right leg up. Then we're going to swap legs. So now we take the left leg up and over. And again, you can cast your gaze towards the chair. Left foot to the chair, right foot to the chair. And again, the hands are supporting your back. Use your hands to stretch the skin on the back up, keep the back ribs in. And press the head of the thighs up, open the back of the knees. Front body is long. The pubis moves up towards the ceiling, away from the navel. Now we raise the right leg up, and that leg, you can bend the knee as you reach that right foot back to the wall. Raise the left leg up, bring the left foot back to the wall, and take your hands off your back, remove the belt from your arms. When you lower your hips, we're going to slide the shoulders off the cushions towards the chair. So the head and the shoulders are now on the lower level, and the back of the waist and the pelvis are on the upper level, the shoulder stand support. And we can rest here. Legs can stay up the wall, or you might like to bend the legs. It's possible to rest here with the ankles crossed and the knees out wide in a simple cross-leg variation. So if you are doing that simple cross-leg variation, now swap your shin cross or your ankle cross. The ankles of the feet, outer feet there on your bricks. And when you're ready, we'll roll over to the side. So you can bring your knees together, carefully roll over to the side, come off your support. So even though this sequence that we did was aimed at beginners, inversions for beginners, there's still a lot of challenge involved, and there may be some poses that were perhaps really difficult for you to achieve today. And of course, practice is key. Keep practicing and eventually you'll find that the poses come. If you enjoy practicing with me, I invite you to check out the video library on my website. There's now over 400 classes in that library, and I'm adding new classes every week. heatherkitchenyoga.com.au, and you can start with a 7-day free trial. That's it for today. Thanks for joining me. For more in-depth teaching, check out the video library on my website, heatherkitchenyoga.com.au. The link is in the description box below.